Alright, so today we have a Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 PCB, and we're going to do some general overview, things to look at, what to talk about, what to inspect if you have problems, what to fix, what to change, what to clean, various parts, what they do, if you have this problem, check this, all kinds of stuff here, but very basic. So the issue with this is that it's working, but occasionally it does not boot, and a power cycle will make it boot, and or it'll play in the middle of a game, it'll shut off and reset, things like that. So it's not reliable. However, it does work. So I want to show you the basics of troubleshooting and what to clean, what to inspect, what to look at, all various things like that. So I'll show you what tools we need, the important parts to look at, and things like that. So let's start with audio problems. Let's say you have audio problems where, let's say, your main audio IC here is faulty, coming up faulty on your ROM check screen. It could be the chip itself, but very, very rarely it's one of these. These three chips here are the RAM. You can have problems with the RAM. There are little inductors here labeled L1, L2, L7, things like that. You check to make sure those little inductors are not open. So barring the inductor problems or any of these three RAMs being bad or the main audio IC being bad, you would want to lift and inspect and clean the legs on U57 here. U57 is also, it's a GAL chip that's part of an incorporation into your audio circuit. And then these are your four audio ROMs. The main audio ROM is U2. If U2 is faulty, you will not have any audio. So let's say you boot it up and everything passes the check. Your main audio chip passes the check. All your audio RAM passes the check. Everything boots up and works, but there's no test tone, no audio or anything. You want to make sure that your U2 sound ROM is good. Because even with these three ROMs removed, you'll still get a test tone. If U3 is bad, you'll get 3 test tones. If U4 is bad, you get 4 test tones. U5, 5 test tones. But one single test tone means U2 is good and your audio circuit is functioning. But if you have nothing, you want to make sure U2 is good. You can remove it, reseat it, clean the legs, all that, and I'll show you how to do that stuff shortly. Also in the audio circuit, if you have your main audio amplifier over here on the heatsink, you have your audio filter cap right here, 16 volt, 2200 microfarad, and we're going to actually change that as part of our bulletproofing of this board. You have your digital to analog converter, which is the U75 chip, no, U89. U89 is right here, and then your this chip here, U92, is your operational amplifier. So your op amp, your DAC, and your main audio amplifier. So again, if you have no audio at all, you can rub your finger around this area right here. If you hear absolutely no audio whatsoever by rubbing your finger across these components here, then it's very possible you have a bad operational amplifier or a bad audio amp or a bad digital to analog converter. So those are all possibilities there. That's basically your audio circuit in a nutshell. And part of the bulletproofing we're going to accomplish here later on is I'm going to replace it with this capacitor with a new one. It's a 16 volt 2200 microfarad cap, and I'm going to put in a 35 volt 2200, which is fine. You can go up in value for the voltage, but not lower, because these do leak and cause problems, and they cause corrosion and things when the electrolyte leaks out and stuff like that. So that's basically the audio circuit. As far as the video circuit, you have the main graphics processor right here. U59 is the main graphics processor. So sometimes when you turn this on, you get nothing but a black screen and it doesn't appear to boot. You want to check all of these solder joints, mostly on this side of the U59 chip, for being popped. It's very common for these chips over here, or these legs of this chip to get popped and cracked solder joints, and that will cause the board to not boot. So you want to verify all of the solder joints on U59 are good and soldered in place. You also want to verify that your U45 and U47 PLCC chips have good connections. And you want to pop those out, clean the legs, and pop them back in. And the way you do that is with this PLCC chip remover. And I'm going to show you how to use this, but not in the way it's designed, because if you use it in the way it's designed, you can bend legs and scratch your chips, and it's just a bad design, these cheap ones. But we'll get to that shortly. Also, your main RAM for your processing. This is your main controller chip here. The U33 is your main controller, and it's somewhat common for for the legs on this chip to be lifted, but it's because people will not secure the board properly. And we'll get to shortly how to do that also. Well, I'll talk about it now. When you install your board, you definitely want to make sure all of your screws are in place, because if you don't, the board can warp. You don't want to have, for instance, a screw in the top one, a screw in the middle one, maybe one over here, and not the rest of them, because the board will eventually warp from weight and things like that. And that causes these legs on these chips to pop as well. So you want to inspect those. If you have RAM problems, you want to make sure all your chips here are soldered in properly. Same with your U33 controller. If you have controller faults on your ROM check on when the board boots. U35 here is the main chip between all of your ROMs and your U33 controller. So if you have a whole row of ROMs bad, or all the ROMs are bad, you want to suspect U35 as being faulty. You want to pop U35 out and clean the legs and or replace it with a one from a faulty board, because I've seen it many times where all the ROMs are bad. Every ROM is coming up bad, and it's U35 is the problem. There's corrosion under it, or the chip is bad itself. Basically, all these ROMs talk to U35 through all of these ICs here, and then to U33. So you can have a problem with one. If you have one row, like this row is bad, or this row is bad, you could have, for instance, this IC be bad, or this IC be bad. All these ICs incorporate through U35 to all the actual game ROMs. Then they talk to U33 and just communicate that way. If you have dip switch problems, if your dip switches don't function, they run, believe it or not, the dip switches run all the way through over here to U32. U32 is the chip that controls the logic for the dip switches. So if you move the dip switches and they don't work, or faulty dip switch information, you want to suspect a bad U32 or legs around U32 being popped off. As I talk here, I notice that this came off of here. Okay. CMOS. So let's say you have a fault where it says CMOS U49 bad. U49 is this chip here. However, this is not the CMOS chip. The CMOS chip is actually U62. So if you get an error that says U49 CMOS bad or whatever, it's not this chip. It's this one. It's U62. U49 was the CMOS chip on MK2, MK1T unit and MK2T unit. U49 is the CMOS chip, but they didn't change the logic on the readout there on the Wolf unit. They just kept that. So U49 is actually this chip here, even though this is labeled U49. And as far as the CMOS goes, you want to just lift this leg and the battery should just fall out like so. And to replace the CMOS battery, you can use any 3-volt lithium battery. I just use a CR2032, and we can, I would bend this leg, the positive leg down to get a little bit more tension on the battery so it doesn't slide around on you for a good connection, and then pop your new battery in there and bam, that's all you have to do, and then redo your settings, and it should hold that for quite a while to come. What else here? So we talked about the audio circuit, the video circuit. These 3 chips here are the main culprits when you have video problems. If it won't boot, check this U59, check U33, how the ROMs interface with the U33 controller, all that. Audio over here, dip switches. Yeah, I think that's basically what I want to discuss. So now it comes time to talk about servicing. So let's say you have one that works just fine, but you want to service it. Well, you know, of course, if it's dirty, get some denatured alcohol in a toothbrush and just clean it up with some alcohol and then dry it off. And it's pretty basic, self-explanatory for cleaning the boards. But the first thing you want to start out with is cleaning your edge connector here. So if I zoom in here, you can see that there is a little bit of tarnish on these pins here. What you're going to want to do is, I'll link this down below, but I have one of these spot sanding pins that are used for automotive spot sanding, and it's just an actual real fiberglass pen meant to scratch off actual paint off a car, as opposed to the cheap ones on Amazon that aren't actual fiberglass. I highly prefer these. I'll link this down below. Everything that you see here, I will link down below. We're going to use this as a chip puller. This will be the PLCC puller, our new audio filter cap, and this thing to clean all of our pins. So first thing we'll do here is we will simply use our, you don't want to go too hard because these pins have a coating. You just want to get rid of all this tarnish that's on here, and it's very easy to do. And see, already gone, and look how much better that is. You just want to lightly go over this, and this will help with connection problems. And because, like anything, the connector is on these boards for is on the board for a very long time, undisturbed. And the simple act of connecting and disconnecting and reconnecting the board can fix the simplest of issues many times. But see how clean that and shiny that is now, just from a basic scrub down. And same thing on the back. We got all this tarnish on here, and we're just going to go through and do the same thing. And now that I realize, now that I'm doing this, I realize I forgot to go over something. It's important to inspect the backside of the board as well for any possible socket feet that might be bent over and touching each other. I mean, obviously, if the board has never been removed from the machine, you really don't have to worry about that. But let's say you buy one of these boards off eBay or something and it has a couple of ROMs showing up as red or bad. You also want to go through the back of the board and make sure none of these pins are touching each other and smashed flat and bent over, because you'd be amazed how many times that these boards have problems like that with bad ROMs or RAM issues or something, and it's just simply somebody smashed these pins flat and they're touching each other on the back side of the board. So you want to inspect the entire back of the board for damage, cut traces, scratches, bent socket feet, things like that. Don't overlook that and forget the easy stuff, which I forgot to mention originally. So we got that done. So let's say now part of the next part of this is we're going to remove the revision ROM. So let's say you have a board that's not booting and you verified it's not the PLCC chips, the U59 controller, there's no scratch pads, no cut traces, everything checks out. You can simply remove and reseat, or remove, clean, and reseat the security chip that tells the board what game's installed, and the U54 and U63 revision ROMs. If either one of these two ROMs are faulty, or the security chip is faulty, the board will not boot. So one of the things you want to check, along with everything else I've mentioned, is to remove these ROMs here. Oh man, those are in there. You want to make sure you take care to not flex the board too much, because that can pop solder joints and cause you problems. So when you do this kind of thing, it behooves you to hold the back of the board to give it some stability, and then try and do this without flexing the board too much. And there we go, not too bad. Same thing when you go to put them back in, hold the back of the board and then push to provide pressure, and then don't push them back in like this, because the board will flex and you'll pop some solder joints. So hold the back of the board and push them in like this to keep the board from flexing too much. So which one was this, 54 or 63? I think this was 54, yeah. So we can go through here and clean these pins just like we did with the edge connector, and looking shiny and new. Yeah, and take great care to make sure you don't put these in the wrong direction. You'll be hating life. Okay, and make sure the pins line up in the socket, and they do. And then you just want to kind of go like that. Boom. The board didn't flex one bit, and we are successful. Now, if you want to, as part of the servicing of these, you can go through and do this to every ROM. And again, if you boot this game up and there's 2 or 3 ROMs that are coming up as bad or red, don't go to extremes and expect or suspect, you know, a cut trace or damaged pad or bent pins or a bad U35 or one of these chips or whatever. Do the easy stuff first. Just pop the chip out, clean the legs, and put it back in, and 9 times out of 10, that's all it needs. And the other 1 out of 10 times, the ROM is bad. Because the other things I've mentioned about this stuff here and everything, a whole row of ROMs being bad, that is a rare thing to see. So those are back in and they're in the right way. Let's get the security chip out of here. Do the same thing. Okay. And I'm also going to pull out U57 here, and we're going to clean U57. There you go. Now U57 is tricky because the label is upside down. So if I zoom in here, you can see that the notch is on the right side, and the notch on the socket is on the right side, but the label is backwards. The label is upside down. So don't get tricked into thinking it goes like this, because you'll blow it up. Trust me, ask me how I know. See the little arrow there? The arrow points this way, and the notch on the right. So the label is upside down on every one of these you've ever seen. Something else that's interesting is, let's say you've got an NBA Jam or NBA hang time, let's see, this Wolf unit board supports 7 different games. MK3, UMK3, NBA Hang Time, NBA Maximum Hang Time, NHL Open Ice, WWF WrestleMania, and Rampage World Tour. And every one of those, the U57 gal here will say MK3. Every one of them. They all will say MK3. So if you see one of these boards and it says MK3, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was originally MK3 and somebody converted it. They all say MK3. So a little bit of information there for you. And we're going to clean these legs and do this first. And again, make sure you do not put it in backwards, because you will not be able to get one of these unless you source it from a bad board. And okay, notch is the right way. We'll push it in, and there we go. Okie dokie. Now let's get our security chips. Same thing. Clean our legs off. Label came off the board. Dang it. I had to go through and put this electrical tape on all these other ROMs because the labels fell off, and I'll do one more here. I got my own labels for these boards, and I don't really want to print any of them out because I'm out of printer ink. So electrical tape it is. Okay, make sure that's good, and got it. All right. So that's basic cleaning there. I want to go ahead and do U2 here just for the heck of it. That one came out rather easy. And if you get a little bit too overzealous, you might bend a pen or so, but that's okay. Just bend it back and you should be good. All right, so put that back in. Okay, and that's in the right way, so everything is looking good. Okay, so let's pop out the U45, I did it twice now, U45 and U47, and we'll clean those too. So how do we do this? Well, this is what's known as a PLCC puller. These are PLCC sockets, and those are PLCC chips. And what you're supposed to do is, these pullers have little hooks, little tiny hooks on here, and you're supposed to put the little hook in each side, and as you squeeze down, the chip will sit inside the little recessed areas here, and you squeeze this, and as you squeeze it, it pulls the chip out. But all it does is it slips off and it bends the pins and scratches the chip. Don't do that. I'm going to show you the easier way to do this. So you just take one end like this, put it in here, and just use your fingers and apply pressure. Push with your fingers while you lift with the thing, and just lift one end out like, it should be fairly easy, like, I say fairly easy, but let's turn this around the other way, because the teeth on these things are really tiny. I do it this way because I can't tell you how many times I've done this the way that it wants you to do it, and all it does is slip off and it scratches the face of the chip, and it bends the pins, and it's just, I don't recommend doing it the way that you would think you need to do it. There you go, right out. Then you go through and do it the other side here, and I got this chip out without bending a single leg and without scratching across the front. If we look at it, you'll see here that we should not have a single bent leg, and well, a little bit, but I mean that's not that bad compared to some people. That's not bad at all. So if we look here, we'll just move that a little bit over. That's fine, and yeah, and good. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. See if I can get a bit closer here. And there we go. Just like that. Other side. Oh, not in there far enough. There you go. That's how I recommend doing these. I highly recommend do it that way because you end up with a chip in good condition, and I'm gonna have to, no, that's good. Oh, nope, a little bent over a little bit, but that's nothing. We can't just go like this and boom, done. So that's how you take those out. Once you got them out, you can Clean them off. And give them a good inspection. They all look pretty good. And pop them back in. U45 is this one. Yes. Okay. And there is a little squared notch here. All three corners here are a 90, but this one is a 45, and that's how it goes in there. And you just take it here and just a very satisfying snap in, and bam. Don't get these mixed up. You won't damage them, but your board won't boot. Okay. You don't need to rigorously scrape these, just a nice little brushing, and that's all they need. Okay, now nice satisfying snap in. Boom. I think except for the filter cap, I think that's about it. So I'm going to turn my fan on here. And let's get this filter cap out. The board is pretty thick, so the easiest way to do this is to apply some fresh solder to this. And I'm going to do this without a desoldering gun. I'll show you that you don't need one. All you need is some solder. This is what I use if you're interested. It's a 6337. And it's 0.8 millimeter. And we will flow some new solder on here. And while we heat up the leg, I'm going to push on the edge of this capacitor, and it should just come right out of the board. Now I'm going to go to the other leg and push the opposite direction. And just repeat that process. Pull it towards me and push it away from me, and cap is out. Oh, it is leaking. Look at that. See? That's why we do this, boys and girls. Let's look at the other side of the board. Well, there's not really evidence of it. There is a little bit, but the cap itself was absolutely leaking. Look at that. Dun, dun, dun. So, yep. I mean, this is what, 30 years old now? This board is 30 years old, so if you haven't capped it, I'd cap it. So now that we have that done, we can take some of this number 4 Chemwick desoldering braid, which has flux in it. I really like the braid that has the flux already in it, and we can just simply braid out this this solder in here. I say simply, but the board is pretty thick, so let's here's a little trick of the trade here. So if you have a thick board like that, you can either take this braid and cut it at a 45 like this, and that'll have a little sharp point on it, and then you can get it down in the hole there, down in the hole. Then you can, now watch this. Oh, too much solder in there. Okay, we're going to have to go to the other side of the board, but that's okay. I want to show you how to do this without a desoldering station, mainly because I don't have one, and B, because not everybody else has one. So if you don't have access to one, you can do this without the need or use of one, with some good braid. Oh, that hole is open, and a little bit of know-how. Let's add, I'll show you another trick of the trade here. I'll add some more solder to this one, and then while it's molten, we will put the braid on there, and boom, open. Can we see through both of them? Yep. So quick and easy. My iron is set to 800 degrees, and you saw how easy that was, and we didn't damage the traces. Everything is good. So let's clean this up. We'll just get a little bit of denatured alcohol on a rag here, and oh, overshot. And we'll just clean this up, and there we go. Clean the other side. They come to snuff the rooster. We ain't gonna die. Okay, now you can see here 16 volt 2200, and I'm gonna put in a 35 volt 2200. No reason why we can't. And the positive is towards us, and the negative is the side with the stripes. So we're gonna put it in thusly. Like so. Like a glove. And we will solder this in, and you want to hold it on here for a few seconds to make sure the solder flows down through the joint, because like I say, this board is thick. It's got a little junk in the trunk. Hold it on there for a few seconds so it flows down through all the way to the other side of the board. Not that it matters, they're just vias, but it would work even if you just dabbed some on there, but you want to do a good job. And we'll cut the legs off, and we'll clean it once again. Little alcohol on my flux covered brush, and there we have it. So, not too bad. And that is basically how you service a Wolf unit PCB. Now ideally you'd go through, and for a full servicing you'd go through and remove every ROM and clean the legs and put them all back in. I didn't do U35. I mean, we could do U35. I've never really had a reason or need to do that, but if you wanted to, again, you just use one side of this, put this in here, and just kind of lift it out. Well, if I can get it down in there. Sometimes you got to push down before you lift here. There we go. And I can't recommend that method enough, because there's the other way just damages these things like you wouldn't believe. So, all right, let's clean this off a bit. All right, now this one's tricky because the arrow points down arrow points down. So our 45-degree notch is up here on the top right, and we just a nice satisfying clip here. There we go. And I mean, yeah, if you have one of these that's working fine, but you want to service it, that's how you do it. And I'm going to take a piece of electrical tape here and just kind of cut it right about there, and then cut it right about there, and we'll put this on here. And the whole purpose of this, we don't want the ultraviolet light. You know, if this is if you're transporting this uncovered or in the trunk of your car or something, and you open up your trunk and the sunlight hits it, or you have it sitting in your back seat and the sunlight hits it or whatever, and you don't want those ROMs to get erased. So, or hell, even if you have a machine with this installed and you open up the back and you turn it towards a window and the sun comes in, yeah, who knows, any number of things, but yeah, leaky cap and everything. You want to keep those covered. But I think I've covered about everything. You have two LEDs here. The left LED indicates power to the board, and the right LED indicates CPU activity. This is the indication of audio activity. This one here for the audio circuit. That's a very basic overview of these Wolf units. Now, it does get into more detail if you're trying to troubleshoot, but we've gone over the components for the audio circuit, the video circuit, revision ROMs, security chip, main game ROMs, the interface circuit, RAM, audio, main audio controller. Yeah, I mean, everything that I think we wanted to discuss I have brought up. Only thing left now is to turn it on, make sure it works after everything we've done. And ideally, you don't want to remove all the ROMs and clean them, which I'll do that off camera because there's no reason to show that here. I haven't done it yet, but I'll do it. But yeah, like I say, this was randomly not booting until you reset power, and then it would magically turn on. Also, it would turn on and boot, and then all of a sudden it randomly reset from time to time. So hopefully this resolves that problem. But let me get it hooked up to the test rig here, and we'll fire it up, make sure it works, go through some things, and call it good. Well, from the jump cut here, the board being still on the bench, it's still doing the same thing. It boots up and works, but the original issue of randomly resetting is still there. Like it booted up and it worked, and as soon as I started a match, oh, reset. And then after it went through the boot cycle again, I went to a black screen and I could reset it and it would reboot, but then it would randomly just go back to a black screen. And if I held the board on my hand under the board and just kind of pressed on the U33 controller, it boot back up and back to black screen, and then boot again and back to black screen. So I'm going to reflow the U33 here, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So you want to get yourself some of this Chip Quick, which I'll link down below, and you want to just, we're not going to be applying any fresh solder. All we're going to do is reflow what's already there. So we're going to add not too much, just a little bit here along this row, because I don't know the history of this board. It could have got flexed or something, and I don't know. So we're going to reflow this here, and it doesn't take much. Again, my iron's at 800 with the flux on there. Make sure the tip is clean, and we're just going to go through here and reflow these pins here with the flat side of our iron. And after you get a few done, you want to clean the tip of your iron and get all the extra solder off of there so you don't create any bridges. And even if you do, it'll be very easy to remove, because this flux is some pretty good flux. Okay, so let's take a look at that, and I dare say that looks pretty good. I don't see any bridges and all that, which I'll look a little bit closer. Of course, we have to clean all this flux off still, so just at a quick glance with my eye muscles, it looks pretty good. And what I recommend doing is in between each cycle, so you'll reflow one side of the chip and then test the board to see if it's messed up. If it's messed up, you know it's something along here. If you do all four sides and then test the board and it's messed up, you don't know which side's messed up. So I highly recommend reflowing one side, test the board. If it's all good, reflow the next, test the board. If it's all good, do the next, things like that. So I'm going to test this real quick. So I'm just going to plug it in. You can't see, just trust me. Plug this in, turn it on, and okay, boots, good screen, checking scratch RAMs, holding the start button, checking sound section, good, okay, boots up, no issues. Okay, let's do the next row. And pretty confident this will solve our problem. Okay, next row here. Now, if you try this and mess this all up, don't come blaming me. It's not my fault. Practice on a parts board or something first. Don't do it on your working board. Okay. Well, I guess you wouldn't be doing this if the board was working, but don't be doing this on a board you care about. How about that? All right. Now, the reason I'm using this flux instead of that other, well, I guess I never showed it. I use paste flux for a lot of stuff, but with SMD work like this, I prefer this ChemWick liquid flux. Okay, and if we look at this, I say that looks pretty good also. I'm going to hook my peepers on it from this direction, and yep, that looks good. Okay, let's test it. I know you can't see it. If I was any good at making videos, I'd have a camera facing the screen, but I'm not, so I don't. Okay, we got our test tone. Checking scratch rams, hold start button, checking sound section, no graphical problems. Okay, board boots. Okay, looks good. Yep, all right. Next. Oh, getting a little clogged here at my dispenser. Gotta apply a little bit more pressure. That's fine. You don't need to go overboard. Okay, make sure our tip is clean. Tip is clean. The trap is clean. Wait, that's not right. Tip is green. The trap is clean. Okay, about halfway. Clean the tip off again. Come back in here. Now, if you're feeling gutsy, you can apply this same method to the Killer Instinct processor, but disclaimer, don't really do this unless you know what you're doing, because you mess that up, that board will never work again. But if you have a main CPU on a Killer Instinct that's having similar issues, you can apply this method and use it at your own risk. But all right, I'm going to live dangerously and go ahead and just do the other side. There we go. Okay. I'm confident this will fix it. If it doesn't, I'll do the same thing to the U59. It's a little bit different, but same concept. Probably won't show it, but hopefully this fixes it, because like I say, if I pushed on this it would fix it. If I pushed on U59 it wouldn't. So it's more common to have U59 here have broken joints along this side and this side than it is for the U33 to need reflowed, but I'm confident that this will fix it. So let's go through here and do this side, make sure the flat side down, and okay, about halfway, clean the tip off. Okay, I think that'll work. Let's check it out. Looks pretty good. Hooked my peepers on it. Seems fine. Let's clean it up. A little denatured alcohol and a toothbrush. Move my fan so it doesn't evaporate all my alcohol. And I do say that's one freshly reflowed U33. Let's take a, oh, I lost my sticker. Let's take another look at it here. And just from my 20/20 eyesight, I do say it's good. So let's fire this up. Actually, let me switch to the other camera here and we'll see what we get. Okay, we're hooked back up. Let's see if it at least still works. Yep, that's good. And we'll go ahead and just skip all this. We know that's fine. And the CMOS, I haven't had this on long enough for the CMOS to save settings. It'll still say CMOS, yeah, invalid. I need to have it on for like 5 minutes or so for it. For some reason, when you change the batteries on these, you got to leave it on for a few minutes for this to save this information and not give this error. I only had it on for a few seconds before it reset last time, so let's. So as soon as I picked Sub-Zero, the game reset.
Sub-Zero.
Oh, that's further than I got last time.
Excellent. Round one.
By the way,
Fight.
I'm using a Nintendo adapter here to let me use a Super NES controller, but I only can press high punch, high kick, and block. So and plus I only have one hand here, so there's only so much I can do. Maybe like this, I guess, I don't know. Well,
Wins.
I can't do much, so.
Fight.
But I think we might have got it. Let's go into the menu here and see if I can just hit the board. Nope, it just reset. Well, so much for that. I wonder. I didn't hit the reset button. Oh, yeah. See, there's something here. I went like that. Oh, look. Yeah, there's something here. It may be. Well, we gotta reflow this one now because it doesn't like something. Oh, see, yeah. So every time I do this, it's resetting. So it doesn't like something here, and I have a feeling it's U59. Yeah. Well, U59 this time. All right, I'll show you one side. And we'll go through and I'll do the other 3 sides off camera. So, but it's the same thing. Only on these you can actually apply a little bit more solder if you want to. But again, you want to get some flux in here. You don't need a lot. Like I say, you just a little light coating, just like that is all you need. Looks like that. And these can be a little bit more of a pain to try and reflow these chips like this. So what you can do is get a little bit more solder in here. I'm not sure how I'm really going to be able to show this here. I wonder if I could prop this up with something. Maybe this heat gun here. That'll work. It doesn't fall on me. It's hard to do this and show it on camera. And of course, this doesn't like me, so okay, maybe that'll work. Okay, maybe that'll work. Okay, so again, you don't want to add too much solder, but a little bit can help. But you want to use the solder that's already there. And you don't have to worry so much about creating bridges on this one because the pins are much larger and further apart. So, but this is basically what you do. Same thing. You don't want to apply any pressure because you can actually bend the leg under the chip, and then you really will be hating life. So you don't want to do that. So that's about how you do that. Then you'll want to either, if you don't have a microscope, you can take a picture with your smartphone, then zoom in, and then make sure all of your joints are in contact. If you don't, you can just add a little dab of solder, and that will fix the issue. And you don't need to apply. There will still be some on your iron for the next couple pins, so you don't have to keep adding more for each pin. And the flux will help prevent the bridges from happening. Oh, I say that, I just created one, but that's no big deal because we can grab our braid and just a little dab will do you here. What in the world? It's always something. I mention it, and it happens. I think that's good. It's just flux inside there. I think that's just flux that's still stuck between there. There we go. Got it. Okay. Sweet. All right. Well, let's see if we can zoom in on that and take a look. Yep, I think that's good. What do you think? Yep, I think that's good. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other 3 sides, and I'll come back and we'll see if it's fixed at that point. Okay, well, I figured out the problem, and it was not the solder joints on U33. It was not the solder joints on U59. I overlooked the simplest thing that causes this thing to not boot, and that is the CMOS battery. If you recall, I was talking about it not remembering settings and having to be on for a little bit. I think I talked about that. But it's the stupid CMOS battery that is the problem. Watch what happens when I move. Look, see this? All I'm doing is moving this around. The CMOS battery on some of these boards has to be installed. See how the game is rebooting if I just move the battery around? If I lift the leg here, the positive leg off the battery, the board shuts off. And if I lower the leg again, so we need to clean this socket here. And that was the problem the whole time. It wasn't U33, it wasn't U59, it was this dirty battery socket. It wasn't getting the 3.5 volts or 3.3 volts, and that's why it wasn't remembering, or that's why I kept saying CMOS invalid, even though I put a new battery in there. And it wasn't those 2 chips, so I'm gonna have to clean this up here. We'll try it again. Well, lesson learned. You know, at least we showed good information on reflowing this stuff. I do need to get a little of that. We're gonna do it real quick. So yeah, if you have a board, I didn't even think about this. One more thing. Let's imagine if you rewind it to the beginning of the video where I talk about various things. Some boards require you to have a battery installed. Some boards don't. Some of these boards will boot and run without a battery in at all. Other boards, depending on the revision, will require a battery to be installed. And it doesn't actually need a battery to work. It just needs to have the connection. So right now, if I plug this in, turned it on, it would not boot. If I took this and just pushed this down to make contact with the other pin, like you have on the back of here for the socket, you just have these 2 pins here. If I jumper those 2 pins by essentially just pushing this arm down to touch the other contact, negative contact, the board will boot. If I let go, the board will turn off. If I press it, board will boot. The problem I'm experiencing here is I bet you that there's corrosion or a bad contact of some kind on the underside of this arm, and we're going to have to try and fix this. Now I wonder if I could, we can bend this up to probably about there. As you can see here, I've got that arm bent up quite a bit. But I'll show you a way to get it lowered back down, and I'm going to try and clean the underside of this with my fiberglass pen. And now I'm going to try and clean the negative side of this. Okay. Now if you bend this down and push really hard right here at the fulcrum, you can bend that thing back. Of course, you don't want to flex the board, but you can bend it back to where it, there we go, perfect. Now I can put this battery back in here, nice and tight. Now, let's check and make sure we have our 3.3 volts, and volts DC, and we get 3.128, that's fine. 3 volts is all it needs. Some of these run on 2.2 volts and it still works, but okay, let's plug it back in again and start moving around and see if it stays running. Okay, also in the process of troubleshooting before I turn this on after fixing that, I did have a couple of spare U45s and U47s, so I slaved in 2 other known good ones just to see if that solved the problem. It didn't. So these are actually different chips, but they still work, so I'm going to leave those in there. But I think that whole time we spent reflowing U33, U59 was, and every time I go like this, it would reset because of this faulty connection here on the CMOS battery. I think the entire time it was just that. So at least we put some good information out regarding that, but it was a waste of time ultimately, I'm pretty sure. So, but that being said, let's turn this on. 1, 2, 3. Well, I can't count. And okay, it still works. Now, if I hammer this around, yep, there we go. That was it for sure, right there. So, all right, we now have a functional board, free of resets. I'm 99.99999% sure. And let's just at least get through a couple of rounds, make sure it doesn't... Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's play a couple of matches. Then we'll turn it off for a few seconds and turn it back on and make sure the CMOS error goes away. If it does, then for sure our connection is good now. So...
Okay. Excellent. Round 1. Fight.
Again, I'm trying to do this with one hand here. Through the camera, so my timing is off too, but can I do this? I can, but I can't hit him.
Reptile wins.
A reptile dysfunction.
Round 2. Fight.
Oh, now what? Oh.
Superb game.
Flawless victory with 2 fingers?
Victory. Round 3. Fight.
No way. Anyway.
UK wins. Round 1.
Well,
Fight.
I think we got it licked. Okay, so let's turn this off. And let's wait, I don't know, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And our CMOS should say CMOS okay. If it does, then we are 100%. So it's unfortunate we went through all that trouble of reflowing those chips, but I guess it is fortunate that at least you got to see how to do it. Yeah, it was just that bad battery connection. So don't overlook that like I did. CMOS okay? Yes! All right, boys and girls, well, there you go. So hopefully it helps you out. If you have one of these, you know what to look at, what to do, how to troubleshoot, things like that. So thanks for watching. See you next time.